Mr. Speaker. The point's been made that this proposed bill reflects rather an old agenda, and that must indeed be the case, because as a much younger man, the honourable member proposing the bill would be pleased to know that I actually engaged in a protest against tariffs. That was at a time when New Zealand had a very diverse and robust manufacturing industry, unlike today. One of the products we manufactured was tyres, and at the time there was a very high tariff placed on the import of tyres, which was well and good, except that it included motorcycle tyres. And of course we did not manufacture motorcycle tyres locally. So I took part in a protest in the form of many of us took used tyres and we posted them to our local Member of Parliament. And I rejoice in remembering the TV images at the time of seeing a great pile of tyres arrive in this place. More seriously, there are very valid reasons why one would continue to impose tariffs on imported goods. We all enjoy buying cheap products, and indeed tariffs can increase the price of imported products. If the cheapness of those imported products is because the manufacturers are more efficient, use better technology, better design, so be it. But most often, or very often, it is the case that cheap imported products are cheap because the people manufacturing them are not being paid what we would consider a reasonable wage, even by the terms or the context of their country. People not protected by unions, people who have no choice in the conditions of their employment. Very often products are cheap, arrive at our shores because the environmental measures around manufacture in the countries of origin are those which we would not find acceptable. Using resources carelessly, dumping waste into rivers and drains, the use of child labour. These are all reasons why one would reasonably impose tariffs on goods coming into this country. It's interesting that this bill comes into the House in Fair Trade fortnight, and a few days ago a number of members from across the House, from all parties, joined a small celebration of fair trade. The idea that fair trade products are guaranteed to come from countries, or at least from supply chains, where people are paid reasonably, where there is some environmental management and control of them, and where you can purchase and consume those products with a clear conscience. In fact, there was a proposal that Parliament, in fact, ought to become a fair trade workplace. The Greens have always had significant ambivalence about the notion of free trade because it can simply be a disguise, a mechanism for allowing us to import products which are not from sources which any of us would find acceptable if we took a moment to look at them for the reasons I've outlined. So we see that tariffs are a very legitimate mechanism, certainly even in 2010. They are perhaps a mechanism to be used thoughtfully, to be used lightly, but nevertheless they do have a place, and we will certainly be opposing this bill. Thank you.
Te Euroa Flavel.
Tēnā anō tātou e te whare. Mr. Speaker, Aotearoa with 18,000 an 18,000 kilometre coastline and a lack of land borders with other countries is probably ideally suited to levying border tariffs on imported goods. In fact, sir, tariffs have been a part of government policies right back since 1840. I'm told that one of the first actions of Governor Hobson was a customs regulation ordinance which imposed a tariff on alcohol, tobacco, tea, sugar and grains. But these days, however, most goods remain free of tax. I'm told that in 2008, some 80% of the total value of New Zealand's imports were tariff-free. There are some tariffs, of course, of around 10%, applying mainly, as other speakers have said, to clothing, footwear and carpet. I understand Sir Roger's kōrero that removing the payment of tariffs from importers would have some immediate benefits for consumers, with the likely reduction in the price of imported goods such as cell phones and computers. We know that the income effects on lower consumer prices would inevitably benefit Māori. And to the extent that tariffs are a tax on exports, there is a school of thought that tariff reduction would benefit Māori relatively more than other groups. This is in light of the fact that, on average, the Māori economic base is twice as export intensive as the New Zealand economy. But there are a couple of major hitches, and I would like to outline some of those at this point. The Māori Party suggests that opening up the domestic market to a potential flood of imported goods could and would undermine locally manufactured goods. We say that this move might threaten our own local manufacturers at a time when we can least afford it. And we say that in the wave of the very successful introduction of the tobacco tax by my co-leader Tariff just last week, it would be devastating if removing tariffs suddenly opened the door to a mass of cheap alcohol and cigarettes. But there are a couple of other issues that I want to raise very quickly, Mr. Speaker. The first is that this bill is inconsistent with our position in the Māori Party about the bigger picture of our international relationships. In our policy document, Hea Te Mea Nui, we made a commitment that the economic benefits of international trade agreements needs to be balanced with consideration of our own local, regional and national social progress and environmental enhancement. So that's the first point. The second point is that as a political party, the Māori Party has opposed all free trade agreement legislation to date. Our policy position, sir, is summed up probably best by saying we want fair trade, not free trade. We seek a trading partnership that seeks greater equity in international trade, which offers better trading conditions and contributes to securing the rights of all workers. There is more than profit at stake, we say. We want to see attention paid to labour and environmental justice issues and human rights issues. Finally, sir, I can't leave this debate probably without reminding or stating at least the obvious that the government has decided against any review of tariffs until at least 2015 at the earliest. Quite simply, there's nothing in the 105 words in this tiny little bill to convince us as the Māori Party to disregard our policy position, to turn against our voting history, to shortcut the government's deadline and to support this bill, which inevitably will tell this House that the Māori Party will not be supporting it at first reading. Kia ora tātou.